Greetings sailors and welcome back to World of Warships and a replay of my own, which is notable for featuring two other CCs. I was actually in a division with Ritagamer there, who is in the Benham, a ship she rather enjoys, and this was all on her stream. But on the enemy team, in a test ship, the Kearsarge, aka the latest hybrid to be added to the game, is Chaos Machine GR, who is a German-speaking, well, indeed, just why don't you just say German? A German CC. That was a weird way of putting it. So, yeah. Anyway, he's on the enemy team, and we will see some more of him up close a bit later on. But I will say, right now at the top, though, I'm not going to be talking about the Kearsarge at all. It is entirely NDA at the moment, and although I could talk about the stats, I mean, you can look that stuff up yourself. I mean, suffice it to say, it's got a bunch of 16-inch guns and a very ugly looking flight deck. As for myself, I'm tooling around in the Siegfried, one of the two O-class cruiser variations that we have at Tier 9. This is the Research Bureau version, with basically Gneisenau's armament of 6 15-inch guns. The other, of course, is the Aegea, which has, or is it Aegea? I can never remember. I'm sure I've looked this up and then I've just forgotten. But yeah, that has 12-inch guns and more of them because they are smaller. Is it 9? I think it's 9. I'm pretty sure it's still triple turrets. There are some other fairly minor differences in terms of things like secondary armament and AA, but the hulls are largely the same. Of the two, though, I have to say I prefer this one. I mean, the accuracy is definitely better than the Gneisenau, although it's a bit less tanky. And talking of tanky, I am taking a very risky turn right now. I've realised that I've got myself a bit too close, and so have some of the enemy ships. And I've just lost a big chunk of my hit points. So that was not the smartest initial positioning. It's cost me rather badly. Although I've been saved from being obliterated by the fact that there weren't actually that many enemy ships firing at me at that particular moment. I think the Fiji and the Bismarck were the main culprits there. When you're not showing that amount of broadside, though, the armour is actually pretty decent. It is definitely a very heavy cruiser indeed. And certainly one of the ones with the biggest calibre of gun. I mean, these are proper 15-inch battleship guns, which do hit very, very hard. It's just you only get 15 of them. You only get 6 of them. 15 would be quite a lot. Can you imagine, like, Miyoko... Was it Miyoko? No, Megami with like 15-inch guns somehow. Yeah, that totally would work. Anyway, I can at least heal a bunch of health back. It can get me like just over half health. So I didn't take, like, it wasn't all Citadel hits, fortunately. I can't remember offhand what armour scheme this has got, but probably some kind of turtle back. I'm sure it would have hurt more if I'd have been in, say, like the Azuma, for instance. In terms of map control, at the moment things are a bit all over the place, but this southern cap does look rather vulnerable. They had a Richelieu that has pushed forward to a point where they can't really then back out. We are capping the middle as well, Rita doing most of that, although there is an enemy to Gotland somewhere in between these two caps at the moment to be aware of, and possibly I could have pinged a hydro at this point. But I will make use of that later. As for the north, it looks like the enemy has the upper hand there in terms of concentration of forces, but no one's actually capping yet. We are an extra ship down though, and the fact that the enemy team managed to grab 2 caps before we've been able to get even one means that we are on a bit of a back footing as far as victory points go. But this early into the game, with this many ships left alive, that's no kind of decisive advantage. If you're in a position like this and you're looking at it and think, "Welp, we've lost," you're wrong. unless your team is all just absolutely, you know, suiciding into the enemy team, yeah, chances are that there's actually enough firepower and enough hit points to bring things back in your favour. So the Richelieu is down. It would be nice if we could get this cap, but I think taking out this Bismarck is probably the bigger priority. I mean, this was nice for both myself and Rita in that it's a tier 9 game. It's top tier, no tier 10s to deal with, and that also means that instead of it potentially being tier 10 carriers, it's tier 8 carriers. Well, the AI on this thing isn't super fantastic. It does have a catapult fighter to work with. Having said that, of course, there's also the Kearsarge on the enemy team with its payload of tiny Tim rockets, but I'm not going to get to see that up close until rather later in the game. Anyway, little cheeky shot at that manoeuvring Belfast in the hopes of securing a citadel, and I have already managed a citadel in this game. We're up to 63k already, and there's Chaos Machine. Man, that thing has got quite the profile. Some ships, I'm going to say it, some ships are just ugly, and oh boy is that an ugly ship. My main concentration there though was trying to get that New Orleans before they managed to make a getaway, so that's one less enemy ship, more points for our team, and also of course a kill for me, which is quite nice. This Bismarck would also be a really useful one to take down, though. The Bismarck is, you know, it's an opponent to be taken seriously so long it's been as it's being driven seriously. But I think that enemy Bismarck maybe doesn't quite fall under that category, given their overall positioning and behaviour in this game so far. Bit of fire from the side there, so I'm hugging the islands somewhat. I don't know if it was just politeness or whatever, but Chaos Machine was largely ignoring me. At least for now. I keep saying these things that are, you know, foreshadowing, but, you know, we will get to see that thing much closer up. We do have a Cyclone in play that's just kicked in, so that has potentially shifted things around in our favour. I mean, we are equal on ships as of that kill. Rita just took out that Oostergotland with a torpedo, which is nice, but it basically negates any kind of long-range gunfire, and it has the effect of potentially splitting up enemy ships into more manageable portions, if I can put it that way, if that makes any sense. Usually the best way to deal with a Cyclone is just to play defensively. If you've got the caps, defend the caps. Don't go rushing one by one into enemy ships, especially if there are radars in play. That can make a big difference as well. But yeah, just going forwards one by one into those close-in engagements is generally not a good idea. Unless you're in a sufficiently sneaky destroyer, then you might be able to get away with it. You don't necessarily have huge amounts of reaction time, given how low the spotting generally drops to. But yeah, if you've got decently fast torps and are using your brains, you can actually do some serious damage. It's probably a good thing that the Oostergotland went down, because that of course does have fast torps, and we do have some now rather low health ships. It was a nice citadel on that St. Louis as they were manoeuvring, by the way. I mean, I was a little wary of their torpedoes, so this is why I've got their hydro going. Put my own torps out as well, because of course this thing has those entirely regular, very well known 6-kilometer German torpedoes that you find on quite a lot of the capital ships in game. I mean, not that many, I suppose, in the scheme of things, but in terms of capital ship torps, there aren't that many overall, and Germany probably has the lion's share of them. They are fairly unusual. Although there's the Constellation now, and of course Key has some, and I'm trying to think what else has got torps. I mean, obviously Mutsu although those are rather unique in their own right. Yeah, I can't really think of many others. But anyway, they do come in useful sometimes. I mean, I didn't manage to hit anything against the Assault and Weave, and I might do something more against the Leon here, although I'm gonna run myself aground. Partly that was also wild manoeuvring to avoid the Fiji torps as I came around the corner. But that's somebody else's problem now, that Fiji. What I was more concerned about is the Kearsarge being at close range, and that thing has got a dozen 16-inch guns. And I'm quite close range. That could be really nasty, but fortunately for me, I think he... I don't know, honestly. I think he was just firing at somebody else. He must have been firing at the Heisen that's behind him. I did come round and catch these ships rather unawares, it feels like. However, we get to see up close the Tiny Tims. There we go, the 3 planes making their strike. So instead of waiting for his guns to turn around, he took the attack he had available immediately and sent up the Tiny Tims. But with not that much room to maneuver, and they, with them going straight into my AA and me basically launching my fight at the moment that I knew that was coming. Yeah, they didn't really do much. So so much for that. The superstructure, by the way, I'm not giving anything too much away here in terms of NDA or anything. The superstructure is pretty weak. It's superstructure. You wouldn't logically put a huge, extremely armoured box that high up on the ship. Although I will say the deck armour is surprisingly good for that flight deck. But yeah, that superstructure is definitely a thing you can shoot for. As with any superstructure, pretty much. Now my torpedoes don't actually get him. It's Rita again, so CC on CC action. But unfortunately, while all that was going on and not wanting to show too much angle to the Kearsarge's guns, I instead took a blap from the Musashi's guns. But then they took a big blap straight back from me, because they were even worse angled than I was. I was actually kind of lucky there that they didn't do more damage to me. And, well, broadside on a Musashi or a Yamato and you've got 15-inch guns to slap them with. 2 Citadels out of 6 shots fired is not half bad. So that's it, apart from the carrier. And I'm very low health. So they're now going to do their very best to try and kill me. So this is where my AA really gets put to the test. They're not quite calibrating their rocket drop properly there, which, to be fair, is something that requires a bit of practice these days, especially as it's different between different nations. So you can't even just play your carriers overall. No, you have to play your specific lines, and sometimes even your specific carriers over and over again to get a feel for how much lead you should be giving for that that machine gun strafe period. The bombs might be nasty. I am broadside right now, so hopefully they won't land many hits, but I can't take many hits, and as it is, oof, that nearly kills me. I'm on now less than 1,000 hit points. If it had been the circular reticles of, is it some of the Germans? I can't remember. I mean, bombers, generally speaking, you've got quite an elongated vertical ellipsis as versus your plane of travel, but of course there are those couple that have a fully circular one instead, and those are the nasty ones because you can't really angle against them because the reticle's always going to be the same. But anyway, somebody gets the kill before the next set of planes can come at me, and I ended that game alive somehow with a Confederate and unsurprisingly a Dreadnought. Top of the team there, 2400 base XP. The Vladivostok did very well, and Ritagamer in 3rd place with just over 2000 XP. So yeah, overall that was a really enjoyable game, and to be honest, this is one of the few ships at the higher tiers, well, let's say one of the few non-destroyer ships, that I really do find to be consistently quite enjoyable to play. A lot of the time I have to be really in the right mood to want to play tiers 9 and 10 especially, and there's a lot of ships that I won't really touch unless I have a specific reason to do so. But yeah, this is one that I will definitely play for fun, and certainly I don't really know why I prefer it over the Aegir, but I do. If I had to pick between them, and it would be the Siegfried each and every time. Anyway, you can find the links to Rita's and Chaos Machine's respective channels down in the description below. Otherwise, you can do all the usual things down underneath the video, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.